What actually makes a home sell faster? You might be surprised to find out that it's not always the biggest renovation or the flashiest features. The secret to a faster sale often comes down to fundamentals that savvy sellers and great agents know how to master. Let's walk through what truly moves the needle when you're selling your home. Let's dig in. If I had to say what I thought was the biggest factor in getting a home sold, I would have to say it's pricing. Pricing matters the most. If you overprice it, buyers scroll past. If you price it, then they're interested, they take a closer look, and you start having some real activity. In today's real estate market, when buyers have access to so much information, the strategy of pricing it higher to see what happens is really not a good one. Buyers have a real understanding based on what is available online of what they can get for a specific amount of money, what makes sense at what price point. And so if your home is priced well above what homes in with your amenities in your area are going for, that will be obvious to buyers and they won't engage. At one point, it used to be that buyers would make an offer and negotiate. Right now, if buyers think that the property is just priced too high, rather than doing the work of a negotiation, they simply move on and look for another option. So definitely keep that in mind when you are looking to put your property on the market. It's critically important that you speak with an expert to get an idea of what an accurate market price would be so that you don't end up overpricing your home and having it sit on the market 4 months at a time. The second thing that influences how quickly your home moves is its appearance. What kind of a first impression does it make? How attractive is it? What kind of curb appeal does it have? Curb appeal, of course, is what folks from the curb outside of the property see. So landscaping, lawn care, making sure that the exterior is freshly painted, the door is inviting and well lit. Those are typically factors that will have an impact on how quickly your home will sell. Buyers like pretty properties. They like the idea of moving into a home with nothing to do. Yes, there are some people who like fixer properties, but for the most part, I would say 75 to 80% of the buyers that I have worked with want to move into a move-in ready property that they can start living in and enjoying right away without having too much of a hassle to do repairs or to bring it up to speed. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you put your home in a position to make the best possible first impression because that is going to determine how quickly it will sell and the level of interest that it will gain from buyers out in the marketplace. Once we've hooked them and they're interested, they like what they see, it's attractive, the curb appeal is good, and the property itself looks good. Now it's important to focus on condition. And bear in mind that buyers notice everything. And one of the things that I've realized is that when they notice defects, the value that they attribute to fixing that defect tends to be a lot higher than the actual repair would cost. So make sure that you've done the preliminary work to make sure that your home looks and feels well maintained. In other words, it's clean, do a deep clean, make sure everything is in its place. A spotless home shows pride of ownership and creates the impression that the property has been cared for. Fix the small stuff, the leaky faucet, the light that doesn't work when you flip the switch. All of those things add up in the buyer's mind to create the concern that they're working with a property that may not have been well maintained and could potentially be a problem when they buy it. And they typically adjust their offer to take into consideration what they think might be wrong with the property, even if that is not in fact the case. A third thing to do is make sure that you declutter and depersonalize. You want to give the potential buyer a landscape or a canvas that they can use to imagine their family and their life in the space and not have it be too specific to you and your collections or your memorabilia. Try to pare that down so that it's almost you're trying to create the impression of a model home. Since most buyers are starting their search online, photos make or break your marketing strategy, right? Most people are seeing the home online and then expressing an interest in going to see the property. And professional photography just does so much more for a property than taking pictures with a smartphone and posting those online. Yes, there are people who can make miracles with a smartphone, not taking anything away from them. But at the end of the day, looking for professional photography, wide angles to make the space look more expansive, making sure that the lighting is right so that folks looking at the pictures will feel invited to inquire or to learn more about the property is an essential factor in making sure that you get the best possible response from the marketing when you put your property on the market. Accessibility is a huge factor, and this is one that I think a lot of times sellers underestimate how important it is. Make the property easy to show. Once we've done the work to present it in its best possible light, put great pictures out on the internet, made sure that it's generating a lot of interest, now people want to see it. The more limitations that you put on the times when the property can be shown, is the harder it's going to be to sell. Be flexible with the timing. I've had clients who've said they want to sell their home, but it can only be shown Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 6. That's going to take a long time for that property to sell because that's not accessible. Many buyers who would be interested in the property may not be available during those minimal time slots. So do your best to make sure that the property is available to be shown as much as possible within reason. Use a lockbox. It's so much easier to have the agent be able to come to the property, let themselves in, show the property to their clients, and get some interest and gain some traction for you rather than trying to coordinate it when you're home so that you can let someone in. Use a lockbox. When using a lockbox, make sure that you put away your valuables. In fact, once you put your home on the market, it's important to make sure that you lock away your valuables so that there is no risk of something walking away. That's something that you want to take into consideration. Put your stuff away, lock it up, lock it out of sight so that you can secure your possessions and then make the property as available, as accessible as you can. And when folks come to see the property, leave during the showings. Take a drive, or if necessary, step out into the backyard. Be outside of the property so that they can walk around, they can feel comfortable. It's very off-putting to try to look at homes when the seller is in the property and is accompanying you into every room. Then the buyer may not feel comfortable. They may not be willing to say what they're thinking about, and any concerns that they have because they haven't been verbalized can't be addressed by their agent to get them back on track and to be interested in the property. Bear in mind that when you're a seller staying at home during the showing, your presence does not improve the experience that the buyer is having. In fact, it detracts from it, it takes away from it, and it makes it less likely that the buyer will feel comfortable in the space enough to want to put in an offer to purchase. This is one of the things that I talk about the most, understanding the market condition. The timing that it's going to take for your home to sell is going to be affected by your location, by the condition of your home, but separate and apart from that, it is also going to be affected by market conditions. When you're selling in a seller's market, you can expect the time frame to be faster. You will be asked to make fewer concessions. The market is in your favor, which is why it's called a seller's market, and your experience will be more favorable. When you're selling during a buyer's market, the scale has tipped in the buyer's favor. They have more choices. They're going to ask for more concessions. They're going to be looking to negotiate. That's just the nature of where you are. It's really important for you as a seller to understand what type of market you're in when you put your home on the market. Reason being that your strategy has to align with the type of market that you're in. If you're in a buyer's market and you're behaving like it's a seller's market, you're not going to get your home sold. Conversely, if you're in a seller's market, but you're behaving like it's a buyer's market, you're going to get the home sold, but you're probably going to leave money on the table. So the optimal result where you get your home sold in the least amount of time for the most amount of money, making you the most amount of profit, is making sure that your strategy aligns with the type of market that you're in, be it seller or buyer market, and that way you will get the best result. Another thing to keep in mind is making sure that your home is being marketed appropriately. We want to make sure that the property is on the MLS and syndicated to all the sites that feed from the MLS. We also want to make sure that we're doing social media marketing and targeted ads, as well as hosting open houses and promoting the property to our agent networks. All of these things are a part of the marketing process that gets exposure. If your home isn't seen, it won't be sold. So the goal is to make sure that we get as many eyes on it, if only digitally as possible, so that we can generate some excitement, generate some interest, and get the property sold as quickly as possible. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're selling the home, think about how flexible you can be. And a lot of times folks don't realize that the price is only one variable in a real estate transaction. So maybe you can't be as flexible as you would ideally like to be on the price, but maybe you can be flexible on the closing date. Maybe you can extend it out or you can shorten it depending upon what the buyer needs. Maybe you're able to do some minor repairs that come up as a point of negotiation. The point is that negotiation requires give and take. You have to, you don't have to do anything, but for maximum success, you should think about the points that you are able to be flexible on and be willing to offer those up as the give and take part of the negotiation when maybe you're locked in on price or you just don't have a lot of wiggle room on price. You can act in good faith. You can show that you're trying to work with them. Maybe it's replacing the appliances, or maybe it's providing a small seller concession to help with closing costs, moving the closing date. These are all things that don't necessarily have a big impact on the price, but can feel like you are looking to work with the buyer and create a good relationship between both of you. Flexibility doesn't mean giving everything that the other party is asking for, but it does mean that you are demonstrating that you're willing to compromise, and you'll compromise where you can. I have seen that go a long way with deals that I have worked on where the seller maybe didn't have a lot of room to negotiate with price. They had a loan that they were barely going to be able to pay off from the proceeds, but they were willing to accommodate around some other things that the buyer wanted. And so making sure that you have something to give, some aspects, some items to give in the give and take is pretty important, because that signals to the other party that you're acting in good faith and you're prepared to be reasonable. It's important to recognize that every home is unique, and what maybe worked for your neighbor when they sold their home a few months ago may not necessarily work for you. Let's get together and create a personalized selling plan for you. It's a complimentary consultation. You can access it via my website, simply AskSharon.com. Schedule a time that's convenient for you, and we'll get on a call to talk about your property and what steps you need to take to be able to get the best experience out of selling. We'll talk about pricing, we'll talk about market conditions, what your strategy should be, as well as a comprehensive marketing plan that you should use to be able to get your home sold as quickly as possible. Whenever you're ready to get started, visit simplyasksharon.com and schedule your time to talk with me. I'd be delighted to hear what you're looking to get done and to share with you how I can help you achieve those objectives. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please remember to like it. I discuss real estate topics in an in-depth way every week, so please subscribe to my channel so you can be notified when new videos are being released. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you the next time.